So there's two things. There's algorithmic error, which is, so we're feeding the algorithm bad data or dirty data. So it's making bad decisions, or it doesn't have enough information. So in the facial analysis algorithms, it doesn't have enough pictures of darker skinned women. So it's misidentifying, or darker skinned people. So it's misidentifying those people. So that's one side of the coin. And the other side of the coin is when the algorithms are feeding on our existing biases, and then they're enhancing those biases.
That's really interesting. And for those listening at home, so actually the first thing I want to say, reflect on what you said about the racial prejudice. So it's already difficult enough to get people to address hundreds of years of racism and prejudice behavior against minorities. That's already difficult enough. And it's just going to make it difficult, or even more difficult, if algorithms continue to fuel that.
No, it's systemic. Racism is systemic, and it isn't, and that's the argument. Well, there's no slavery anymore. Well, these systems are designed in a way that can be harmful to people of color. And until we change those systems, we're going to continue to have racism. And what technology is doing in many ways, it is just reinforcing that systemic racism. I give the point of predictive policing, that, when police go out, before all this technology, they would go to certain neighborhoods, because that's where they would see the crime, and that's where they would make arrests. And therefore that's where they'd send more resources and make more arrests. Well, now the algorithm is using that data to make its predictive policing decisions. And that's just bad data, because the police have seen more crime there, because they're in these neighborhoods, because that's where they're sending resources. It's not necessarily that's the only place where the crime is.
Yeah, it's like a self-fulfilling kind of prophecy then, right? So 100%
catch-22. Yeah, like a catch-22.
Right? Yeah. So 100% of arrests happen where police presence are there, right?
Yeah,
so,
exactly. Yeah. So if you're sending more police to poorer neighborhoods, that's where the arrests are going to make. But there's still there's still crime happening in the wealthier neighborhoods. It's just the police aren't there to see it.
Yeah, that's a really sobering one for us to think about. I could be extreme here and just be flippant for a moment, and perhaps I shouldn't, because it's a serious topic, but you could also argue that 100% of arrests happen where police are there. So police are the problem. I mean, I'm just being extreme for a purpose, but
I think, and again, America, this is an issue that we are right in the thick of right now, is how do we reform police? And I will say, I work, I contract with a security company, as well as Future Point of View. And I work around a lot of police officers or former police officers. And most police officers, a vast majority of police officers are good people who want to do a good job. Actually, the man who recommended me for TEDx was my friend, Lieutenant Wayland Cubitt, who just recently ran for Oklahoma City Sheriff, but he's an Oklahoma City police officer. And he cares about this issue. And there are others who have come up to me, police. I had a police chief here locally come up to me and say, how do we ensure that this predictive policing algorithms, that's not happening in our department. So I will argue that we do need reforms. And again, mental health, we are on a mental health call. We are sending police into situations where they shouldn't be sent into, where this is a situation where needs a mental health professional, and a police officer isn't informed enough or doesn't have the experience enough to deal with this. And a lot of those issues that we have are because their mental health professionals should be on those calls and not police. So I will argue that we do need reforms, but I would hesitate to say that, we need to remove all police, because, when something bad happens and your house gets broken into, or you're walking down the street and somebody steals your purse, you're looking for the nearest police officer.
Mm. The lesson I'd like to take away from that for our audience is that data is powerful, data is useful, but it can also have unwanted outcomes if you're not careful with understanding what the data is and isn't telling you. And then when you overlay that with technology like machine learning, it will amplify whatever that effect is, whether it's a positive effect or a negative effect. The machine learning will do it faster than what we could ever do before. So it's like a amplifier of whatever that effect was. Really.
And when you talk about data, like the importance of good data, and how can we as a society look at these same data points around, COVID-19, and half of us say we need to shelter in place, and the other half say I will never wear a mask again for the rest of my life. How does that occur? It's because, well, number one, the data is so messy and weird, and nobody really knows what's going on. So we're feeling our way through it. So our data is not great. So people take that data and they manipulate it to their own aims. Just like, in an essay, you hear a good quote, you might use that quote. You might use a Bible verse. I'm a Christian, but I could take a Bible verse and I could use it one way, and another person can use it another way. It's the same Bible verse, but you're teaching it in two different ways. And that's why not only is the data critical, but it's the way we interpret the data and the way we report the data as well. And to do so in an unbiased way.
It's another form of confirmation bias, letting the statistics that you see prove your argument that you already had made in your mind, rather than rational thought. I want to come back to the bias around internet searches. And you did pick, by the way, in your talk, two of my favorite actors. I do dearly love Robert Downey Jr. and Scarlett Johansson. I think they're both extremely talented people. And your example was wonderful. So I'm going to do a quick call to action for our audience at home. And I want you to listen carefully, maybe write this down if you can, if it's safe to do so, and go and search for these things after this podcast. Do a search for Robert Downey Jr. and see the images that you're presented. Do a search for Scarlett Johansson and look at the images that you're presented. It's really it's a stark contrast, no pun intended for Tony Stark. It's a stark contrast in terms of what you'll get between the two. And I've got to hand it to Scarlett Johansson here as well. She's a great inspiration to me. And one of the things that I see in her is she calls, and you're an ex-journalist, Corey, so this would be an interesting one for you, but she calls reporters and journalists on this. When I've seen videos of the Avengers all on a panel interview at a film festival, for example, and they'll ask Robert Downey Jr. a question about the craft, about the movie, etc. And then they'll ask Scarlett Johansson about the dress that she's wearing or whatever the case may be. It's very real. And she stands up for it and says, well, why didn't you ask me that question? A question that might have been asked to Samuel L. Jackson or something. She'll say, well, why didn't you ask me that question? Why did you ask me that question, etc. So she actually does call people on this. And I think it's quite something that she's motivated to see an end of.
And I should mention, and I did mention this in the talk, but that inspiration for that came from a Wired article. And you can probably go and search that article. I do want to mention that because I like I said, like you said, Mick, I am an ex-journalist, so I'm approaching this TEDx talk like a journalist. What I did was I collected a bunch of research that others had done, and then I added my own flavor to it. Maybe the part about the algorithmic error versus enhancing existing human biases. And then I reported and I told the story. I was a storyteller, but essentially I was collecting the work that others had done. And that's why it was so critical for me to make sure to highlight the work of Sophia Amoujanoble and Joy Balmwini, because I want to celebrate the work that they've done and and I do not in no way wanted to take that and say that that was my own.
Sure. Okay. That's
Yeah.
good to know, Corey. And I think you've done a great job in bringing it to our attention and bringing it to light, which is wonderful. The other examples, once again, call to action at home. Have a try at this. Do a Google search for the term schoolboy, and then do a Google search for the term schoolgirl, and look at the images that you get back. That one, just mind blowing. Keep on going from there on. Just do a search for the word beauty and see which images that you're presented.
Mhm.
And then you'll start understanding what Corey's talking about here.
And, you know, it's TikTok's been accused of this and others as well of promoting the videos of certain types of people, like young blonde girls. They're going to get their videos going to get a much higher in the algorithm, because the algorithm has decided that's what people want to see. People want to see good looking blonde girls in swimsuits. And then, TikTok has had a huge issue with Black creators creating videos, and then white creators taking that content and reappropriating it, and then they get ranked higher, although they've essentially stolen the content of this Black creator. So it is an enormous problem that we're seeing on a wide swath of social media. It's not just Google, it's others as well.
Now, to be clear on a personal opinion here, coming back to what we said before about whether this was done on purpose, I really don't believe it was done on purpose. And I don't even believe that the heads of these organizations or the engineers that work at Google or TikTok or Facebook, I don't think any of them have any of this intention, but the design of the algorithm makes it so, right? So they didn't set out to do this, but it's a real problem and we need to do something about it.
And it's going to be a profound part of the future, because these algorithms, they're not going away. We're not going to suddenly reset and go, oh, we've decided to trash them. No more algorithms. No. So we need, better data. We need better design. And then we need people overseeing them. We need people, looking at them and auditing them and say, are these algorithms biased? So it's going to be a constant battle of continuing to to monitor, and that's going to be a job. In the future, jobs are going to be, I'm an AI ethicist, I'm an AI auditor. So I go in and I make sure the AI is not being biased. And we have to do a lot of testing before we just roll these things out. Let's test them, and let's say, hey, if we're going to do predictive policing on a community, we go to that community, we go to a town hall and we say, hey, we're perfectly clear. We're going to use this technology. Here's what we've done to ensure that it is not biased. Here's the reasons why we're using it. Here's the reasons why it's going to keep you safer. And here's what we've done to ensure that we're going to protect you. So we have to be transparent, and we also have to continually improve the way we build these technologies, and we have to give more diverse voices, because if I'm an algorithm that is serving the disabled community, who's going to build that algorithm better? Myself or somebody who is dealing with a physical or mental health difference? More than likely that person is going to build it better than I would, because I'm maybe not, let's say, disabled, like I'm paraplegic or quadriplegic. In that case, in that regard, probably somebody who is dealing with those things is probably going to design a much better algorithm.
Okay, good. Now we are heading towards what can the world do about this? And there's the first one. So technology companies putting a greater emphasis on diversity and inclusion in their workforce, having those diverse views in your development teams, in your architecture teams, in your leadership, so that you are considering people from all walks of life in the design of your technology. That's call to action one. I think that's a very good one, Corey. We are the Leadership Project, and we talk to an audience that are the leaders of today and the leaders of tomorrow. What other advice would you like to give to our leaders about what they can do to contribute to this issue?
I would say, well, if when you're talking to mentoring young people, in that regard, I would encourage them to get into these technology fields, especially if you're mentoring young people of minorities, young people with in the minority community, or like I said, in a community that's underrepresented or underserved, like maybe those who have physical or mental health differences, or people in the LGBTQIA plus community, people who are in those marginalized or underserved communities. Make sure that they have got a seat at the table, and that you're encouraging them, to maybe go into these technologies, and to go into these, I should say, these fields, because these are going to be the fields of the future, where a lot of our work now is going to be done, that we do now is going to be done by an algorithm, or done by machine learning in some way, or machine intelligence, I should say. So we have to learn to work alongside these technologies. So all of us, at some point in time, are going to be partners with you can call it an AI, you can call it some machine learning platform, but we're going to be a partner. That's going to be our tool in our toolbox. So we need people who are building darn good tools, and so we need young people who are going to be passionate about building these tools, and making sure that they are fair to all of the communities, and equitable, and that are lifting people up instead of pushing people down. Because again, technology is a tool, and it can be used for good, it can be used for ill. So we need people who are understanding and who are passionate about saying, I want technology to be used for good. And then if you are a leader who are using any of these technologies in your organization, and a lot of leaders are using them maybe in hiring, or in the way they assess people, maybe the way they assess their employees. Well, you've got to make darn sure that, especially if it's ranking somebody in somehow, you have to ensure that that thing is fair. Because if it's not, and it could harm a person's life, that's a big deal, and we need to make sure that doesn't happen.
There's two really important things that you're bringing up there, Corey. One is about whether these algorithmic biases are influencing job search and job selection. That worries me as well. And I think there's a lot of companies in the world that are starting to wake up to the need for more diversity in the workforce, but they are struggling. They are struggling to do it, right? So, and I do wonder about whether algorithms are playing a role in that. The second one, about the call to action: get involved. Get involved in technology. It is the future. Machine learning is with us now. It's up to us now whether we turn that into something virtuous or something less virtuous. And the other bit of advice I would give, I found that quote that you gave early in the podcast from Jack Dorsey really interesting. Have one eye open at all times. As you're working on the art of the possible, don't just do something because you can. Do something because it will bring something value adding and create a meaningful impact in the world, but also keep one eye open and look out for what could go wrong. How could it be misused? How could it be accidentally misused? It's pretty good advice for people to think about going into the technology world.
The ranking aspect is, always concerns me. We talk about hiring, but we also talk about colleges, and colleges are using algorithms now to rank students, which I talk about in the TEDx talk. But also, if you're a fan of Malcolm Gladwell, he just recently, his new season of Revisionist History, he did a 2-part series about the U.S. News and World Report. And in America, that's a big deal for how they rank colleges, because it's, parents want to say, I want to send my kid to the top university. Well, the algorithm that they use to rank those it was designed in such a way that it is disproportionately, is pushing down historically Black colleges while promoting those colleges, like the historically white colleges, predominantly white colleges. And they didn't design it to do that, but the way they actually designed it reinforces that. And he goes and he walks through how exactly it occurred. And it's a fascinating two-part series, but it's like, this is not just like a new thing. And it's not just technology. Technology is helping algorithms, but algorithms are being used any way you rank somebody. Maybe I might, go rank who I think is going to win a basketball game. I could do that with an algorithm. I pop in a bunch of data of like, what they score and who they've played and, what their RPI index is. And I put it all together and I mash it up and it ranks the teams they think are going to win. So we can rank people, but the danger is when the danger when you rank a basketball team is I'm going to lose some money when the algorithm is bad. The danger when you rank people is that you are going to harm that person and you are going to hurt that person's opportunities. You are going to hurt that person's chance to have a good and meaningful life. And when it comes to like predictive policing or something, you may risk harming that person's freedom as well.
It's another example, I think, of the bias already existed, but the machine learning will then amplify and accelerate that bias, and need to be acutely aware of that. Let's get to future point of view now. And you talk about helping leaders look into the future and anticipate how technology will impact their organizations and impact themselves. What do you see as the best advice you could give to the next generation of leaders about the future and about the future of leadership and the future of technology and leadership?
I would say always, like, to get back to how we started this, is always be learning, always be reading, always be growing, always be constantly improving. We have a thing at Future Point of View we call a rivers of information, and it's essentially a feed. So you build a feed of information that you can easily consume, and it's good information. I have, for me, my rivers is a lot of podcasts, and I know I've got a good feed of podcasts. And so anytime I'm constantly, listening to a new podcast, or I've got a couple of great newsletters I subscribe to. So I'm always seeing good content, and it's constantly teaching me about new and exciting subjects. And I love what I do because I essentially get paid to learn. And I'm a learner, and they pay me to learn. They pay me to look out into the future and say what's coming, and so I enjoy that. And so you have to find a time as well in your day to just spend 5-10 minutes and build that rivers of information. And you can reach out to me, and I can. I didn't know we were going to do this later, but I have a website, CoreyPatrickWhite.com. It's just my name.com, or you can reach out to me at FPOV.com, Future Point of View, FPOV.com. And, I'll give you some tips. I'll give you some tools on how you build a good rivers of information. I'll give you some of the sources that I love, but find good contents around machine intelligence. If you're interested in cybersecurity, find some about cybersecurity. For me, like the CyberWire is a great, not to promote other podcasts, but there's some great stuff out there. And like Mick, include this podcast into your rivers as well, because you're constantly going to be hearing from interesting and diverse voices, and that's going to be able to grow your knowledge in different and diverse areas. So to me, that's one of the main things, is just constantly be learning, build a good rivers of information, and just make sure that technology is a part of that rivers, and leadership as well, because those things aren't going away. They're only going to get more into our lives. They're only going to become more important and more critical. So those are two areas where you should always be constantly learning and trying to stay ahead of in your industry, whatever that industry is. You want to be looking, out 3 to 5 years and saying, what is technology going to do in my industry? How is it going to disrupt my industry? Blockbuster, they didn't look out 3 to 5 years and say, Everybody's going to have a device where they can stream, and they're probably not going to come and rent videos anymore. So we ought to buy Netflix. They didn't do that. They didn't look out 3 to 5 years, and they're gone because of it. And so that's why it's so critical as a leader to be going, how am I high beam? How do I become what we call a high beam leader, which is that I'm looking out 3 to 5 years and I'm preparing my organization for what's coming in the disruption of technology. So not only am I stronger, but also I can gain market share because my competition didn't do that.
So I'm picking up three things there, Corey. I love this idea of rivers of information. I think that's great. And lifelong leaders are lifelong learners. There's absolutely no doubt about that. The second thing I'm picking up, which you didn't say, but I think it was important in what you were saying, is that you do have a personal choice in what you consume. Like, so we've been speaking a lot on this podcast about the algorithm delivering things to you. You still have a choice as to whether you turn that off and you go and select the channels that you're going to listen to, right? So just like Corey was saying, and podcasts are potentially one of the ones where you could go down the path off as well. So you can make some personal choices here despite the dangers of what we've been talking about.
And don't get your news on social media. Yeah, or at least, don't get your news on Facebook. I mean, obviously, you can get good information on, there's, interesting thought leaders on Twitter that are putting out great information, in your space. And a lot of Twitter has thought leaders in any industry, but look at your news sources. Where are you getting your news? Where are you getting your information? And if you're getting your information, maybe you should, if you see a story that upsets you, that makes you mad, that gets your blood boiling, maybe stop before you share it. Yeah. And go to Google and say, are there 2 or 3 other outlets that are reporting this story as well? Or is it just this one news site that I frequent? And then you can go, oh, well, maybe this is BS. And then maybe I should go. And if I'm a Fox News viewer, here in America, maybe I should watch CNN, just to see. Maybe if I'm a CNN viewer normally, maybe once a week or a couple times a week, I should just turn on Fox News, and get a different perspective.
Yeah, good advice, Corey. And the third thing I picked up was about technology disruption and for all leaders to look a little bit ahead in your horizon. And there's, the famous saying is you're better off to disrupt the market that you're in than to be disrupted. So something to watch out for all of us there. Sticking with FPOV for a moment, so future point of view, the other one that got my attention was the term humology. Can you tell us what humology is?
Humology is a concept we created, and it is the correct balance between humanity and technology. So every process, everything we do is on a spectrum between humanity and technology. And we are moving most of our processes, when you talk from an organizational or a business standpoint, are moving more toward technology. They're moving down that spectrum. It's a spectrum H5, 4, 3, 2, 1, T, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we're going from H3 to H2, and we'll go to H1 in most processes now, because we're injecting that technology. We're instead of cold calling a customer, we're reaching out to that customer via email or automated marketing systems. So we're injecting technology into that, and we're moving a less human element to more technology element. But in the key is to find the right balance. As technologists, we're not everything. We have to move all the way to T5. We'll keep pushing to T5, keep pushing to T5. No, I wouldn't say that at all. I mean, I like interacting with my pastor. If my pastor was a bot, I probably wouldn't like interacting with him as much. If I'm an undertaker, I'm probably going to stay on the H5, H4 range. Or if I'm a nurse, we need our nurses to be human. But a lot of processes are moving more to technology. It is finding that right balance. And the key to finding that right balance, or the reason why you want to, is because you're going to build what we call that technology halo, where you are going to, your customers are going to be so impressed with your services that they see you and and they want to use you because you serve them so effectively. The classic example of this is Amazon. Amazon has used technology so well that they people use Amazon because they know their customers so well. And obviously, I'm not saying Amazon is the perfect company by any means, but they have used technology so well, and they've used that balance so well to serve the customers, that they've built that technology halo. But again, you can use too much technology. If a customer, we all have been set on those, trying to get a hold of a customer care representative, and we can't, and we just get so frustrated that we go, okay, I'm done. I'm not using your service anymore because I couldn't get somebody on the phone and talk to that person. So you can automate things too much as well.
Mm. I'm taking away two things from that, Corey, on the homology scale. The first one is from H5 through to T5, we've got an ethical obligation to respect about what is the right balance in terms of being human versus bringing in technology. And the other way of extending it would be that technology should be an extension of being human, not a replacement of being human. So how can you use technology to enrich your human aspect, not replace it? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. I think from a business perspective, it's knowing your customers, it's knowing what they want, it's desiring their needs and be able to fill those needs effectively. And a lot of organizations do like a relationship journey mapping, where you go through, and we do that as well, where we add in the homology aspect of we find out where are where's your personas, where they, where they're getting their news, where they're getting their social media, and what kind of service do they want from your organization. So it's using technology to understand, and a lot of that is through data collection. I am in data privacy and cybersecurity, so I think you need to be respectful of your customers' data as well. In the old days, it was, I've used a famous quote like Marissa Mayer said, we'll collect as much data as possible, collect, 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 collect. Well, today it's not that. We want to be smart about the data we do collect, because if you lose or you mishandle your customer information, they're not going to forgive you for that. They're going to move on to someone else, and it could be harmful, if not a death knell for your company if you do have a cyber breach and your customers are impacted by that. But conversely, you do need to also collect data on your customers so you can serve them most effectively. And that's how where Amazon has done such a great job, is they collect good information about their customers, and they're able to to serve their customers effectively.
It's a good sobering point there for all of us to understand that we are the custodians of our customers' data, and they do trust us, and that trust can be very quickly broken if we're not careful. The other one, and you mentioned this in your TEDx talk as well, there's also a fine line between creepy and marvelous, I think was the words that you used. And for those at home that are listening, this is the difference between when you look down at your smartphone and your smartphone has worked out. I think you used the example of going to the gym in the morning, and your smartphone already knew that that was your pattern. And there you go, you're off to the gym. And by the way, here is the gym, and here's the transport options that you've got to arrive to your meeting on time, et cetera, et cetera. So there is the marvelous of, oh, wow, that's amazing, versus, oh, wow, that's a little bit creepy.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm sure everyone has the memory of the first time that occurred to them when your phone did that to you, and you're like, what in the world? But the creepy versus marvelous, the example of, maybe you mentioned, a retailer, and then you open up, you're having a conversation with your friend and you mention a restaurant, and you open up your social media app or Google, and you see an ad for that restaurant, and you're like, how how is that possible? Like, that is creepy. Like, no, there is no doubt about that. That is creepy. Or when, when you click on a website, and like recently went and got, had to purchase trophies for a thing, and now everywhere I go, all I see are ads for trophies from this retailer that I bought them from, and it's, we're getting too many emails from, like an organization that, maybe there's a photo sharing app, or a photo that sends me, 4 emails a day, and they're just trying to stay connected with me, but they don't need to connect. They
That's
have a purpose. They have a purpose for me, and it's to get photos from them when I need a photo. I don't need emails from them a day. I just don't. I don't. I appreciate that their marketing department is zealous and wants to do a good job, but at some point in time, you're like, that's too much. That's too much. So it's that fine line between, it's like a relationship, right? You can on a first date, you can, or do you hug the person, or do you go in for the make out kiss? You have to understand, right, as a person, which situation you're going to do either. And when it comes to marketing as well, you have to decide, do I give the person a hug, or am I giving the person a wet kiss?
What a great analogy. I love it. Well done, Corey. All right, I want to talk about also your strong work in the community as well. So if we go through the 3 that I've picked up, but please let us know anything else. First of all, the Oklahoma Messaging Project. What is that about?
Great organization. It is. I'm real passionate about criminal justice reform. So what it is we go into prisons here in Oklahoma, and we film the prisoners reading to their kids, and then we send the DVDs to the kid with a book. So the kid gets this nice package with the book, and then he could pop, or she could pop in the DVD, and then watch her father or mother reading to them. Because a lot of these kids, or a vast majority of these kids, have little to no connection with their incarcerated parent. A lot of times they're across the state, they're incarcerated across the state, and the caregiver is the grandmother or the grandfather. They don't have a lot of money, so they can't drive the kid across the state to see mom or dad incarcerated. And these kids, 6 times more likely to end up in prison if you have a incarcerated parent. 6 times. These kids deal with self-confidence issues. They deal with literacy issues, because they don't necessarily often have a good, stable person in their lives who can help educate them. And so this project has been shown to boost that literacy, and to help break that cycle of incarceration. Because when you incarcerate someone, you are just not incarcerating that person. You are incarcerating their entire family, and maybe generations of that family. And the sad part is, the state of Oklahoma has some of the highest incarceration rates in the world. In fact, it has the highest female incarceration rate in the world. It incarcerates females at a higher clip than third world countries. It's devastating, and it's something we're working to try and improve. But in the meantime, this is a great program, a great project, that helps connect these kids with their parents.
Yeah, I can only begin to empathize with how that must feel. But thank you so much on behalf of everyone for the work that you do there. What about a chance to change? What's this one?
Well, the mental health addiction recovery. So it's local. If you're having substance abuse or alcohol or gambling issues, or you're just dealing with mental health issues, you can go in and you can see clinicians, and they have education as well around addiction and gambling and mental health behavior. So we do a lot of outreach in the community, with education as well. And I'll admit, I'm not seeing a therapist now, but for the last year and a half, I was seeing a counselor. I think it's something that we all need, We are so focused a lot of times on our physical. We all go to the gym. I go to the gym, work out because we want to be physically fit, but a lot of us just do take no care of our mental health.
Mm.
And so it's important to stop and say, maybe I do need to talk to somebody. That doesn't make me crazy. Doesn't make me, insane or whatever term you want to use. It just makes me a person who has feelings and emotions and is struggling with the challenges of modern life and relationships and family issues and the media, even and social media and technology. But sometimes you just need somebody to talk to and unload.
There's two things I want to share there, Corey, and thank you again for what you're doing there. Just amazing. The first one for our audience is I want to see an end to the stigma that happens surrounding mental health. 1 in 5 people have some level of mental health issues that they're dealing with. 1 in 5. So just look around the room that you're in right now and have a think about how many people in your immediate vicinity may be struggling with something, right? So it's pervasive, it's everywhere, and we need to remove the stigma that's associated with it.
And that would be, and I don't know the data you're pulling from, but 1 in 5 maybe serious mental health, or those are documented cases of mental health. I think we're all dealing with, yeah, we're all dealing with some sort of, we've all got struggles.
Right.
We've all got struggles in our lives, all of us. And that takes a toll on your mental health in any situation. And so it's important to see a professional, I think, just like a coach. If you're just, you're a leadership coach, sometimes you need to see, and you may need to see a mental health coach as well. And, you need people in your lives who can guide you and make sure that you're strong, and you're doing the things you should be doing, and not, not letting things build up till you break down.
And that leads me nicely to the second thing I wanted to say, Corey, which is, this is for everyone listening. Sticking up your hand and asking for help is a sign of strength. It's not a sign of weakness. Okay. That's for everyone listening. Please take those words away. Sticking up your hand and asking for help is a sign of strength. It's not a sign of weakness. So please.
Amen to that. Amen to that.
Okay. Final one. You also conference organizer for Stronger Together.
Mm-hmm. It's a organization started by others, but kind of led by my good friend, Dr. Clarence Hill. And he is, it's about bringing people from diverse backgrounds and viewpoints and putting them in a room together and letting them have conversations. And today, this is just so critical because we're not having those conversations. We're on social media spouting off, and then we're not sitting down in a room and talking to somebody who doesn't look like us. So we need these places where we can have these conversations, and that don't end up in shouting matches, but we can say, hey, I'm dealing with this and you're dealing with that. So whether it be different races, different socioeconomic backgrounds, it's putting those people in a room and just letting them have conversations. So Clarence talks about the palace principle, which is we are all in our palaces. We are stuck in where we're comfortable, and that is our palace. And sometimes our palace is our neighborhood. So, or maybe it's the people that we hang out with. So it's the restaurants, it's the country club we go to, or whatever it is. It's the clubs that we hang out at. Those are our palaces. Well, sometimes we have to leave our palaces and go to places that make us uncomfortable, because that is the only way we're going to grow. It's the only way we're going to mature, and it's the only way we're going to understand how we can walk a mile in somebody else's shoes. And that's really what it's all about. It's about, how can I care for you if I don't understand you? So I have to learn to understand you, and I have to learn to understand the struggles that you go through.
That's really powerful, Corey, and I like this idea of people listening to each other, right? So, diversity of thought, taking the time to really deeply listen to people from a background other than yours. Thank you so much for all that you do in the community. I mean, it's not enough that the work that you do in your day job is helping us move forward as a society and as a world. Then in your personal time, you're also helping these wonderful community organizations. So thank you on behalf of all
It,
of us.
it helps that I don't have children. I have a little extra. I to all the parents, so don't feel too bad. I understand. I have no children, so I have a little more time on my hands. I'm young, and I'm able to give my time. I appreciate that. And these are great organizations, and I'm blessed to get an opportunity to get to say yes, because I have learned throughout my life, because I've not always been a very giving person. I've at times in my life I've been selfish. There times in my life when I was in Wyoming, I was a part of the community because I was a television journalist, so people knew me. But I didn't. I went home. I went to work. I went to the gym. I sat on the couch. I watched TV. That was what I did. When I got to Oklahoma, I people started asking me to do things, and I said yes, let's do it. And the opportunities that have opened up for me because I said yes. I am on this podcast because I said yes to the bridge, to Stronger Together. I decided to help out with that conference, and at the conference, you have talk, you have speech, you have speakers like every other conference. And one day I said, it would be kind of a cool topic. I'm hearing about this interesting thing about bias and algorithms. And that might be kind of a cool topic to talk about for the bridge conference. So I went, I dug, I learned all I could about it. I started building a presentation on it, gave it. Somebody saw me give it there, recommended me for another conference. Lieutenant Cubit saw me at that conference and recommended me for TED. And now I'm here because of you. And that was just because I said yes. And so the opportunities I've been given in my life are because of people and the relationships I built. And those relationships I built is because I've been willing to say yes. And yeah, it's a lot harder than a lot of times I'd much rather prefer to sit on the couch and watch TV, trust me. But my life is a lot richer because I've decided to say yes instead.
I love that so much. My life is so much richer because I decided to say yes instead. I just love that. And there's so many learnings from there. But also, thank you so much for being so open and transparent about it as well, Corey. Just wonderful. So that brings us to the end of the show. We'll leave with final two questions that we ask all of our guests, Corey. So the first one is, what's the one thing that you know now that you wish you knew when you were 20?
How much time you got? No, I'll do one or two. I'll just say, yeah, take risks. Hey, don't be afraid to take risks. Don't be afraid to take a leap. Don't be afraid to jump. Don't be afraid that what's going to happen in 10 years, because you know what? My life, I had, if you told me I would be in college in Boulder, Colorado, that I would be living in Oklahoma City working for a technology company and on a podcast talking about my TEDx talk, I would have told you, you are out of your mind, sir. but that is my life, and that is but that's the life I've had because I didn't map it out. A lot of, it is important to look forward, but it's also important to take the leap when you can and know that it's going to be okay. There's going to be some challenges and there's going to be some struggles, but at the end of the day, as long as you're above this earth and you are breathing, it's going to be okay, because you've got another day. You've got another day to improve. You've got another day to make better choices. You've got another day to take another risk, and you've got another day to love people and to be there for people and to build those relationships. So I would say take risks and don't be afraid by challenges, and don't get comfortable. Don't get comfortable, because it's so easy to get comfortable. I love comfort. I love it. I wear comfort like pajamas, like I wear comfort like pajamas. I want to stay comfortable. I want to stay in my little bubble and stay comfortable. But the times in my life where I have stepped out of my comfort zone and done something that made me uncomfortable are the times in my life that I remember. Those are the times. And those are the times and things that I'm going to remember long after this podcast.
Comfortable doesn't change the world is the way I would sum that up.
Yeah,
Very good.
exactly.
And finally, I'd like to give you the floor. You did mention some of your websites earlier, but please share with the audience, if people want to get in contact with you either personally or with Future Point of View, how do they find you and engage with you?
Yeah, I do. Like I said, I do have a website, CoreyPatrickWhite.com. I have a list of all kind of the stuff I've done, some of the things. I'm still building it, but it's got a lot of content, but it's also got a way you can connect with me via email. You can look at FPOV.com. I would encourage people to go to FPOV.com, learn a little more about our organization. If there's ways that we can help you, we can help you be a high beam leader, and we can give you resources. I mean, I'm not trying to sell my services here. You reach out to me, and I'll give you some free resources on how you can build the good rivers of information, or how you can more effectively become a high beam leader. So, go to fpov.com, check us out, and reach out to me, and I'll send you some resources. I have all the socials. I'm terrible on Twitter. I'm a terrible Twitter person. I should be better at it. I'm not. I have like 12 followers. It's just a medium to me that I'm more of a long form guy. I like to really dig into thoughts. So I do have a blog that I only sporadically update, because again, I'm busy and I don't write, and that always falls by the wayside. But I am on LinkedIn as well. So feel free to, I think it's Corey P. White on LinkedIn, but if you look me up, Corey Patrick White on LinkedIn, you'll find me. So feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn as well.
Thank you, Corey. And we will put into the show notes all of the links to the websites that Corey is talking about, and also his social links. So thank you once again, Corey, on behalf of all of our audience for sharing with us today. But I'm also going to say thank you on behalf of society for all the work that you do, both in your day job and in your community work. It's just been such a pleasure to have you on the show and to hear your thoughts and to challenge our thinking today. Thank you so much.
Oh, Mick, thank you. Thank you for having me. This has been such a blessing and such an honor. And thank you for the work that you do, building young leaders up and making sure that they're prepared, to build better organizations and build a better world. That's what we need in this world. We need leaders who are going to go in and are going to say, I want to build not only a better organization, but I want to build a better world, and be a better leader, and you're helping people do that. And so I totally admire that. And I'm so grateful you invited me on the show. This has been so fun.